Mr. Fred. How's it going, man? How are you?
Good, Chris. Good to be here. How are you?
I am great. Like I said when we were chatting off air, I am wiped out. We've got tornado stuff happening over here, so I spent all morning like filing my chainsaw sharp and kind of going through and getting it all going and getting it dialed in. And I was just thinking of how nice it was to maintain something. Right? There's like this zen of sitting in the garage, and I got my vise and the chainsaw is locked into the vise, and I've got my little file, and I'm filing each little notch on the chainsaw, and I move it and I do the next one. And I took a step back and I looked at the chainsaw in the vise. I have my shitty little like incandescent light bulb shining on it. I'm like, man, this is the first time that I've been like, I am my grandfather.
It's old school stuff for sure.
It
Absolutely.
is, right? I don't know. I felt like I could get a new chain for $29.99, but why not try and fix it? So I sharpened it up. I went out there and I cut the tree that fell down is an oak tree, and it is brutally hard, man. I mean, it will not cut. And I got like 4 logs in and it's already dull again. So I don't know if it's just like a shitty chain. I've lent the chainsaw out a bunch of times and I know it's been replaced a bunch. So it might be made of Chinesium. So I sent the bride to go get like some. Where's Husqvarna made? Is that got to be like Norway or something, right?
Oh, that definitely sounds Nordic. Yeah,
does,
they probably
yeah.
made axes before they made chainsaws for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully they get a chain that's made out of whatever Thor's hammer's made out of for the rest of this job. Oh, what are you up to, man? What's new in Nebraska, dude?
Not much new in Nebraska, but I'm not here very often, so there's that.
A lot.
Yeah, this is one of those few weeks. We had like a 7-8 week period there the past month and a half that was just crazy for travel. So it's nice to have like a weekend off. Yeah. And I don't even know what to do with my time. I'm just sitting here with like what I've done all the like the yard work, the stuff around the house. There's other stuff I could be doing. Prep for the rally. I need to do that.
Everything runs. Everything's great. Nothing needs anything.
Like I do have like a beater car that I should get running a little better for winter time.
The white wagon thing?
Yeah, I have like a nice white Mercedes wagon, and then I have like a beater Mercedes wagon called Pablo. Pablo's not running so great right now.
What's going on with it? Is that like an E320 or like a 300 TE or something like that?
300 TE. So S124. I have 2 of them. They're both 90s. They're both white with gray cladding. And one of them's got blue interior, one's got like peanut butter guts. And Pablo's the one with blue interior, and he just out of nowhere, I went to go start him, and it sounds like it's like off time, but I know it's not off time. It didn't jump time. It just doesn't sound. And then it definitely has fuel. I don't know. I need to dig into it more. What's that?
It's CIS, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
could be the injectors. It could be a number of different things, but
you know what's cool is growing up a Volkswagen kid. You love VW too. I know that. And you grow up and you learn on CIS a little bit when you work on all the rabbits, and all of a sudden you're going, wow, I know the fuel system for like all of these old piece of shit cars, like Mercedes, Ferrari used it. It's like this fuel system was ubiquitous and it was everywhere. And like what you learn on a rabbit applies to a Mercedes or to a Ferrari or whatever. It's all the same.
It's all like 80s trash for sure.
Yeah.
It's all not good.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, the 60s when the Corvette came out with fuel injection back in the day, that was like, oh, it's fuel injected, but it was like the type of fuel injection you have to tune at different elevations. So it's humid this day. It's more humid than it was yesterday. You got to retune it. It's like
a carburetor, but worse.
Yeah, it's just like fuel injected to sound like it's fuel injected like fancy, but it doesn't work well.
It's great if you're an astronaut just driving around the like Kennedy place.
Because they have plenty of time to tinker around. They were just rock stars back then. They got those Corvettes for $1 a year was the lease program on those things.
I mean, that's a pretty good deal, right?
Not bad at all. That's why they all drove them. Yeah.
Was that a marketing thing from Corvette?
From the dealership nearby the Space Center. Okay. It was that any astronaut could get a Corvette for $1 a year. Man. So, and they would do like special, like they had like red, white, and blue ones. The red one had white and blue stripes, and the other 2 were the opposite. And that was like the 3 astronauts that time got that.
How many astronauts were there at the time, though? Right? I mean, there was probably like 12. Now there's everyone and their mom is an astronaut. Hey, I don't want to diminish astronauts because like astronaut is like pretty like high tier. You got like, what do you have?
Right, but
rocket scientist, nuclear physicist, And then it's like astronauts, like way up there. But I think there's a lot of astronauts now, and I don't know that they could give a bunch of them away for $1 anymore.
They're not rock stars anymore, so there's no marketing behind it. They could give a Corvette like to astronaut today for $1 a year, but there would be a picture of a dude in a NASA suit in the wall, and you had no idea who it was. So there's
Right.
no like, oh, I should get it too because he has it. There's they don't know
What
his
is it
name.
with society now where astronauts are not cool? Like I know you kind of get numb to it, just like you get numb to horsepower, right? Like it's just
You
it
do,
feels
yeah.
faster, but whatever.
Yeah,
And it's almost like the same thing with astronauts. Just not. I mean, that's why they ended the Apollo program, right? Like nobody was tuning in. It wasn't a big deal anymore. I mean, they should have kept going just because exploring space is freaking awesome. But it
yeah.
just wasn't. Nobody was tuning in, and it wasn't good as a marketing campaign against the communists, I guess, anymore.
That and the space shuttle blowing up.
Not
That
good,
type of
right?
stuff. It was just like, wow, this isn't good at all. And now it's just we send a rocket up to space and it comes down. They come down in a capsule, and it's not that. It's just we've done it so many times now. It's not like
I even showed
crazy.
my kids, and I was like, "Look at this guy. This went into space, and it just landed." And they're like, "Yeah, okay." And then they went back to doing whatever it is what they're. I tried to get them to sit down to watch a SpaceX launch, and they just didn't care, man.
The
They're like, "Oh,
first
this is
time I
really cool," but
saw a video of those rockets coming back and landing back down on Earth from SpaceX, I was like, that's video game stuff. Had
unbelievable.
no idea they could do that.
I think they need to work on the spacesuits a little bit. They look like kind of like they don't look complex enough because they just look like pajamas.
But here's the thing: is they don't need like all those. They're not doing spacewalks.
I
They're
don't
just
care.
going inside, and then now they're
Doesn't
just
matter.
sending people up. Like I think soon they're sending up like 6 people. Nobody on board has ever been to space. Nobody's an astronaut. Nobody does anything space related. They're
Yeah.
all literally just like going up to space for fun and coming back. I want to get signed up for that one. Can I go
I
on
do
that?
too, but I want to wear a spacesuit. I don't want to feel like I'm wearing like what do they call it? When you're a nurse or whatever, and you just have
Scrubs.
scrubs. I don't want to feel like I'm wearing scrubs when I go to space. I want something with gold foil on the liner. I want to feel like if the capsule window blows out and I get sucked into space, I'm not going to freeze instantly and go.
That's
I,
fair.
I want to. I
It
want
would
to
it would
see.
be there is some theater behind wearing a whole-on spacesuit like
Yeah,
that. I'm sure instead of
yeah.
like the PJs you get to wear now up there.
So what do you do in Nebraska, man? Is like what do you call? Is it like a Nebraskaite? Are you a Nebraskan? Is it Nebraskan?
Nebraskan.
All right.
Yeah, I've lived here like my whole life, and still to this day, I can't say there's much to do. Uh, I live in the part of the state with people. It's
Okay.
Omaha, Nebraska, and that's
Yeah.
the only place that Omaha and Lincoln's the
Lincoln.
only
Yeah,
places that have
Lincoln.
people, and everywhere else is cattle ranches and cornfields.
Why do people hate on Nebraska so much? Do you think it's just it just
They've never been here, but if they have, they've probably just driven through it on I-80, and as
yep.
soon as you get past Omaha and Lincoln, you have about another 8 hours of Nebraska, and all of that is just cornfields and cattle ranches. There's nothing out there.
in the summer when it's 100 degrees, it gets a little smelly
Oh,
out there.
yeah,
It does.
and like living here, I don't mind living here. I like I said, but I travel quite a bit, so I get out quite a bit.
Yep.
But we get like 100 degrees with 80% humidity, and then we'll also get -40 wind chills in the wintertime. So we get like the worst of both worlds. And then we're the only triple landlocked state, so you better really not care for the beach if you're coming here.
You guys don't have much for ponds and lakes, I suppose.
We have some, but they're not abundant at all.
What do you do as a car guy then? It's just, I mean, this must explain. I mean, 1320 was kind of birthed there, right? I mean, that's kind
Yeah,
of where. I mean,
yeah. This
there's
is
nothing else to do but drive fast in a straight line, right? That's
the
right.
racing. So the street racing used to be a lot better around here. It hasn't been. We haven't been
That's
street racing
everywhere, man.
here or
That
racing
statement
here
just
in.
changed that statement to everywhere. I think the street racing used to be better everywhere, even here.
There are some places. Okay, so we kind of have our ear to the ground as far as the street racing stuff goes. We're There's still street racing very much alive and well all across the country. It's just in different places.
Sure.
Or you have to know. That's the part about the street racing that makes it interesting for our fans and kind of like our bread and butter is it's the one thing we film that you can't buy a ticket to. We like to say.
Yeah.
Like every other event we go to, you could come out there with your video equipment and film the same things that we do. You can go interview drivers because it's not that hard. You just walk up to their pits and ask them. Like it's not NHRA, it's not bad. But going to a street race, you have to know where the street race is, know the people that are running it, one of the racers at least, to even know where it's at, and then you have to be allowed to go there. Like I can't say people are picky at street races about who shows up, but they don't want a bunch of spectators. If you're filming stuff, they kind of probably want to know who you are, type stuff.
Yep.
But we've been doing it for 20 plus years now, and we just kind of know where the street scene is throughout the country and know who to hit up. And we go street racing all the time. Last week I was in Arizona just for a street race. That's all I went down there for.
It has to be pretty crazy if you think about, I think of moving to Minnesota 20 years ago, and we used to go down to this place called the Checker Lot. And it was Checker Auto Parts, which I think is I don't think they exist anymore. I haven't seen a Checker Auto Parts in 20 years since that one. And we would all get together. We all go to this lot. We would hang out and watch all the cars drive by. And there was this diner down the street that had been there. It was called Porky's. I don't know if you've ever heard of Porky's. This big back.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you know Porky's. Porky's is now gone. I don't know if you know this. It's gone. It's now condos. Yeah, rip. It's condos. And that killed the whole University Avenue scene is when Porky's got, shut down. Because, back to the 50s weekend or Summer Nationals like Carcraft here was insane at Porky's and University Avenue. It was wild. People were driving up and down the street, revving stuff, doing little burnouts of lights and all this fun stuff. And I remember there would be guys that would pull into the lot, and there was this dude called DC Nate. Shout out to DC Nate, who had a Honda Civic hatchback that he never opened the hood. Never. Nobody ever knew what was in there, but he would always come around and he was always looking for people to race for money. And he would pull into the lot, and some guy with like a big turbo 1.8T Golf, like this was like the Euro lot. This Checker lot was Euro guys.
Mm-hmm.
And some guy like with a GT28 Garrett turbo on his 1.8T would leave with DC Nate and come back with his tail between his legs. I don't know of anybody that lost to DC Nate. And I think DC Nate's, his mom died, and he built the car with some of the money he inherited from his mom, and he like dedicated the car to his mom. And
Gotcha.
it was black with tinted windows. It was kind of like this secret thing. Like what's the Challenger or Charger from Detroit that was black, and they discovered it in a garage and stuff like that. And this car used to go around and destroy everybody, right?
It was like the Ghost or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then it disappeared forever. Anyway, I don't know what happened to DC Nate. But during this period of time is when street racing here was really huge. There was a couple places where you would go and you would do it, and they were way out of the way. Nobody was.
They normally are. People think street racing happens in a neighborhood. It's normally nowhere near the public.
Nope. And it's kind of where like all these things seem to happen at the same time, where it used to happen by these train tracks south of St. Paul, and there was just this long straight road, 2 lanes, pretty smooth. It had to have been about a half a mile long. And then it was on the weekends, Friday night, Saturday nights, there's nobody there because it was just a train yard. It was just closed. There's nothing. There's no one around. And then Porky's closed when they built the condos there, and then they built a light rail on University Avenue, which is just made it impossible to drive around on. The trains come in, all this stuff. Made it totally unfun. And it slowly died. And in that road, they ended up putting a bunch of concrete barriers on, like little chicanes. So they just dropped all these concrete barriers in there, and that put it into it. I'm sure, as I've gotten older, I don't go looking for stuff anymore. I'm sure it's still happening. I'm sure there's still DC Nates of Minneapolis out there, but I'm kind of like oblivious to it. And I feel like things must have you noticed, because you've been in this a long time, since the, like what, 2010, 15, somewhere in this period of time, right?
2012 or so is when I started doing 1320 stuff. Yeah.
Even since 2012, what people were racing against each other and the amount of power they had versus now, it must be crazy. FCP Euro is your online retailer for OEM, genuine aftermarket and performance parts for European cars. Just got a box in today. We're going to change the oil on the Golf R. We're going to do a differential oil swap on the Golf R. They had everything I need in a kit. It was awesome. From BMW to Porsche, Volvo, and more, their catalog is a one-stop shop with over 275,000 unique products, including expert-assembled kits to make shopping simpler. See, kits. Just got the oil change one for the Golf. I'll see if I can get Jesse to do the rear differentials oil swap because I don't want to do it. Actively building out the VW, Audi, and Porsche catalogs from our current to our favorite classics, including the Mark I Scirocco Freeride car, which you saw us working on at FC Piero, and nothing was better than being able to turn around, walk into the back, and grab parts. It was phenomenal. I was actually really surprised how much they had for that car. Plus, every product they sell is backed by a lifetime replacement guarantee, even wear items like wiper blades, brake pads, and oil filters. And I can tell you, Nathan from FCP gave me a little bit of a tour. I went into the back. Guys, there was so much stuff that they were warranting. Oil and shocks. I mean, they do like thousands and thousands and thousands of orders. And there was just like guys sending things back, and they had like this whole program set up to take things back and honor the lifetime replacement guarantee. With the opening of their distribution center in Mesa, Arizona, FC Piero is now shipping parts from both coasts, serving most of the country in 3 days or less with free shipping options. We at Overcrest have been working with FC Piero for years and can vouch for them. Real people who are passionate about what they do and the cars we love, while making sure they put you, the customer, first. And like I always say, believe in those and support those, support what you love. And FC Piero definitely supports us. Check them out today at fcpiero.com and take advantage of free shipping on any order over $49.
It's aggressive. It's like back in 2013, something like that. If you had 1,000 horsepower, you were king of streets.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now that's entry to barrier to entry is basically 1,000 horsepower to be considered any kind of quick. The cars these days are just in like I have a Volkswagen group chat of friends that I've had for over a decade. We'll talk about stuff. They'll talk about the mods they're doing to their cars, and they talk about how much power they're making. I was like, that's cool and everything. But it's almost, I've been doing this so long, I've been around fast cars so long, it doesn't do anything for me. And unless it's making 2,000 horsepower, it doesn't really do much. And I ride in these cars. Like, that's part of my job, is to ride in the cars on the street sometimes. And the only people that really get to see these cars or film these cars on the street is basically us and maybe a couple other people. That you have to know people that can afford a 2,000 horsepower street car to even get into the car and race it. But it's some insane, like, it's the first time I rode in a 2,000 plus horsepower Lamborghini was
Jesus.
It made, I think, 2,500 or 2,300 at the time. And we were in North Carolina. We were racing a bike, and we gave the bike, it was a 6-speed gated manual, 2,300 horsepower. We gave the bike the hit, and this was a turbo Gixxer 1,000, made probably 300 plus, maybe 400 horsepower to the tire. We left or we let him take the hit, and then we ran him down like it was literally nothing. The only thing I could describe it was it felt like the hand of God was pushing me down the road, because I'd never felt that didn't feel natural. I was like, you guys, whatever they're doing at that shop is not of God, because it was like, I didn't think any man-made thing could do what that car did. And I've ridden faster stuff since then. It's gotten so crazy from 2013, having 1,000 horsepower was a lot, to now, like, street cars are rolling around with 2,800 horsepower. That's an insane number, and experiencing it is very. I'm one of the lucky people who get to say I get to experience that kind of stuff. It's insane.
Truly, yeah, I mean, it's got to be boost by gear, right? I mean, how do you?
Absolutely, you can't give it all in the first gear. There's so much stuff where it's just like, it's second nature to me to think about. Like you said, it's got to be boost by gear. I mean, to me, obviously,
right.
But to other people that build cars that make like 500 horsepower, they could probably give it all the time. Really no issues, But we're talking, these cars are like, you buy a Lamborghini, you buy a $400,000 Lamborghini, you drop it off at Underground Racing, you say, I want 3,000 horsepower, and you spend $700,000 with them, and you get 3,000 horsepower back. Like, you're spending twice as much as you spent on the car at the shop. but the car is going to do what they say it's going to do.
How long is it going to do what they say it's going to do for?
Now, that's another question. See, reliability is still nowadays you can make 1,000 horsepower, you can make a junkyard 1,000 horsepower car and make it last for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 10 years ago, you couldn't make 1,000 horsepower last very long. Nowadays, it's the same type of thing where you can't make 3,500 horsepower Lamborghini last very long, but it can last the event. Like those type of cars are shop built cars, shop driven cars normally, but they do make them and they do sell them. But the people who own those cars are likely, they're like, I describe them like they're NFL team owners. They might own the car, but they don't drive the car. They get the big dick feeling from seeing the car they own do something cool.
And you see that at vintage racing too.
What's that?
You'll see that at vintage racing too. Like you'll have a guy with a Formula One car, like a vintage,
right,
with a Judd V10 in it, and the guy that owns the car is not driving that car half the time.
No, he's probably shipping champagne and like, look at my car out there doing some cool stuff that he can't do, which is probably good. Some of those guys aren't driving their own cars because just like in the vintage car world, some of these guys, they have a lot of money, but they don't understand what 3,500 horsepower is going to do when they floor it. And I completely understand that. But then there's guys that they have the car, they have the car built, it makes 3,000 horsepower, and they're the ones that go out and drive it. Those guys are the biggest balls in the world.
I don't want that kind of contrast in my life, dude.
What's that?
I don't want to know.
You don't want to know what that feels like?
No, I don't.
It's not a great, because everything after that, it's not going to be fast.
I know.
That's one thing that's 100% true is after you ride in something that crazy, everything after that is compared to that, and so nothing else is going to be fast. It's very few and far between that I get to ride in something that's that powerful. 1,000 horsepower, 1,800, that type of stuff we get to ride in, doing what we do. But 2,000 plus, it's kind of rare that we get to get in the passenger seat of it. But when you do, it's like, it's crazy. One of the stats that they use for like street racing in general or roll racing, it's 60 to 130. It's a measurement from 60 miles an hour to 130. It's how much time it takes to get there.
Yep.
And I think in a GTR I was in that had the draggy on, we did 60 to 130 in 2.5 seconds.
1,000 to 1,000, and then you're there.
That's 60 to 130, and that was like cruising at 55 and then flooring it. That's not flooring it from 0 and going through 60. That's like we were like 55 and then went. So the acceleration on that thing's just
it's interesting because like that's not how do you. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that I want to feel that because right now everything here, the Driven to Death car has a 250 horsepower S50 in it. My 911 is like 300 at the crank. My Trooper's 200 with maybe 300 torque. And they're all kind of like in this same, they're in the same atmosphere, right? They're all kind of the same. So they all kind of feel pretty good.
They're fun.
They're fun. I feel like if I put a turbocharger on that S50 or supercharged it and brought it up to 450 horsepower or something like that, I don't know that I would want to get into my 911 anymore. And it's easy to be like, oh, well, and I harp on this all the time that people need to take the cars that they drive within the context that they were built for what they are. But that's really tough to do when you're driving around something that's got twice as much horsepower as the other thing. It just doesn't.
I'll say this. So I have the Corvette. The Corvette makes 475, 500 torque. So 475 horse, 500 torque. I have the Harlequin. It's a supercharged 2-liter. It might make 200 on a good day at the crank. But driving the Harlequin in Georgia when I took it to Alpine Volks Fair this year, driving a slow car fast is so much more fun than driving a fast car slow.
Yeah, if you're
like
out
being
there,
able to open up your car all the way, and you feel like a race car driver. You're shifting through the gears, and then you look down, you're doing 45.
Yep.
But you feel good about it. Like the Harlequin's so fun to drive on so many different roads because I can just floor it, and it feels good. But it's nowhere near as fast. But it's a different kind of fun. I have fun with slow cars, but they have to be able to like do something. The Harlequin supercharged,
it's got to have
so
some
it has
spirit.
something.
It's got to have some spirit. Is that a new speed supercharger?
It is. Yeah.
Dude, that was my favorite swap on a Mark 1. A 2-liter ABA. I put the new speed supercharger on it. That rocked. That was
I'm sure that those took off like rocket ships in those little things.
Oh, it was
Absolutely.
great. You could hear it. I mean, the sound of that was super engaging. Be able to rip around in that thing. I didn't even chip the ECU, man. I just put like a bigger MAF on it and just wait for it. And it was
Really?
great. Yeah, I saw one pop up for sale. I have a watched thing just in case anything comes up in terms of those for cheap. It's like, hey, we got the whole kit. It's $3,800. I'm just like,
Oh my
holy
God! I
shit.
didn't know they went up that much. That's
They
ridiculous.
they are crazy money
I
now,
I will
especially if you get a
say
full kit. They're just wild.
that's the thing. I will say because New Speed hasn't made those in like 20 years. They haven't had parts on the shelf for them or literally anything for the past 10, I think. And what was I going to say? Oh, they like to find a complete kit is so hard to do.
Impossible.
Normally they're missing a mount, they might be missing the chip, they might be missing a bunch of stuff. It took me 2 years of my friends sending me different ads and like searching for stuff on marketplace and all that. 2 years, I finally found one in Washington that was a complete 100% kit, all there, and shipped it out to me. I put it on in like 4 hours, slowly in my garage.
Yeah.
Took it out on the highway at like 2 o'clock in the morning. It went 125, and I was like, it works, because the
It is.
car probably wouldn't have done more than like 105 before that.
They're great on a Mark III, Mark II, Mark One. People put them on the Mark IV. I feel like just buy a 180.
Yeah,
What are you
like
doing?
at that, because they didn't have the, yeah. It's kind of a weird thing to do, because especially it feels like such a bigger car, and
Hmm.
I know that 200 horsepower doesn't feel like a lot in mine. I know it feels like less in a Mark IV for sure.
Yeah. Well, weight is king, right?
Oh yeah,
Weight is
oh yeah.
king. I mean, weight is the only free horsepower.
Can we talk real quick? Can we talk about the new M5 Touring and how it's
Oh,
5,600 pounds?
I saw that and it blew my mind. I instantly thought of the Rivian, the truck. Did you see the video of the truck driving into a barricade?
No.
There's like a
Did
video.
it just take out the barricade?
Dude, it's just like they were doing it, like the US government was doing a test and they weighed like 5,600 pounds. Similar weight, 5,600 pounds. It destroyed the barricade, rolled through the bollards, and just wrecked everything at like 45 miles an hour. Just destroyed. And that was at like a 45-degree angle. So when I saw uh that BMW came out, I just all I think about is the physics, right? Because all the computers, all the control, all that stuff can only do so much to mitigate what is pure physics. It's weight,
Mm-hmm.
it's heavy. The coefficient of friction on the tires where it meets the freaking ground can only do so much. And the computer is not a magic wand.
I just, when you see, first of all, I saw a graph. I saw all the memes about it, and we posted a few of them because they're just hilarious. But I saw the graph of like how much weight each generation of M5 got on top of the previous one. They added 1,033 pounds, I believe it was, from the last generation M5 to this one. And then you add the touring on it, and that makes it a couple hundred pounds more.
Right.
5,600 pounds is less than a Humvee. A
Like an
military
H1, like an
and
H1. Yeah.
a military Humvee weighs less than the new M5 Touring. And then they're like, "Oh, it makes 719 horsepower." I was like, "The number you should be worried about is 5,600, buddy. It needs the 719 horsepower to even move a little bit."
Yeah, I wonder what you think about the pound per horsepower there. That's like one of the statistics you go for. It's how much weight are you pulling around, pound per horsepower and horsepower per liter. Those are our two things that really matter, right? How much weight are you pulling around and how much are you doing with that air that you're pulling in the engine?
Well, and now they're just throwing the high. It has a hybrid system that I'm sure
Yep.
helps with power, and that number just gets thrown in there too. So you have to deduct that and see what it's actually making from the
Well, you
nat
can't
or
deduct
from.
it. I mean, just because it's
Well,
EV
just if they're saying it's 719 horsepower, I'm not sure how much of that is
Oh, how
from the
much of that
hybrid
is from
system.
the hybrid system? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Which is not. I was driving around. I was out in Connecticut working on the Scirocco, and I was driving around. You walk out of the rental place and they go, "Hey, which one of these cars do you want?" And I'm standing there looking around, and it was an Audi, like a sedan. And then there was a BMW small SUV, and then there was this giant E450 GE450 something Mercedes. I go, I'll take the Mercedes, and it ended up being it was a hybrid, but it never had any power because the hybrid system never charged the battery enough to be able to use that extra power to be able to do anything. So unless you're plugging it in every night, which I wasn't, I was driving around doing things, you know, here and there. Maybe if you're rich enough that you're buying a E450, you've got a charging station at home or something like that. But if that battery's flat and you're down on that, however much power it is that you're missing from that hybrid system, good luck with 5,600 pounds. If you're looking for the best app for navigating your next adventure, look no further than onX Off-Road. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. The app features trail ratings, detailed information, and a discover tool to help you find trails near you. onX Off-Road also includes public and private land boundaries, so you'll always know where you can legally off-road and camp. Plan trips with ease using our route builder and share your adventures with friends. With features like route tracking, waypoint marking, and real-time updates, you're equipped for any challenge. Ready to start your next adventure with confidence? Try onX Off-Road free for 7 days. Download today and start exploring. They have a phenomenal offline and off-road routing side of their software. I love scooting around in 3D mode. Anyways, try onX Off-Road free for 7 days. Download today and get going with onX. AC Solutions offers complete plug-and-play air conditioning conversion kits for your classic BMW, such as the E30, E28, and E24, and soon, Porsche. Featuring OEM quality components with period-correct finishes and materials, their products are designed as a drop-in upgrade to your old factory system, but with the performance of modern technology. And guys, when he says drop in, they mean it, man. It's all this beautiful stuff. It's yellow zinc. It's everything you'd want to see. If it all came brand new from the factory back in like 1986, if you went and bought brand new stuff, that's what it looks like. It looks phenomenal. It's very well done. Austin's attention to detail is second to none. Their products stem from hands-on design and development with a deep knowledge and passion for these vehicles. They're designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts and come with a complete full warranty, quality instructions mirroring those of a factory manual. Check out all their offerings at acsolutions.co.
Yeah, that's a complete internal combustion deal at that point for those.
So, have you seen any of the EV stuff show up at some of these events? Are they allowed? Do people show up with like a Tesla Plaid and line up? And
one of our videos that went so viral, this is years ago, 2016, 17, whenever the P100Ds had just come out. Mm-hmm. That was the top dog at the time. Those things made, what did they say they made? Like 750, 800 horsepower, something like that. We had a video of one show up to a street race in North Carolina, and he raced like 4 different cars and destroyed all of them because it was all-wheel drive. They get down on bad roads. Those EVs do really well, especially Teslas. We've filmed them a few times, but that video went so viral that Elon Musk shared it on his Twitter. When that happened, I screenshotted it, sent it to my boss. I was like, "What the fuck did we just film?" Like we had never seen a Tesla at a street race like that before. So I'm sure a lot of people haven't before, but I've never seen a rule against EV showing up to anything. So,
but is it kind of like culturally shunned?
Yeah, nobody likes them. Absolutely. Like we saw a Cybertruck show up when we were at ZMAX in North Carolina this year. I went up to him. I was like, "How much power do these things make?" He's like, 600. I was like, "Do they have any different power levels?" He's like, "Not yet. They're going to release more later." I was like, "Oh, okay." He goes up there and it ran like a 13 something. Like they're not like the unless you get, I guess the Cyber Beast is the new tri-motor, whatever.
Yeah, the big motor boy, yeah.
Whatever it is. Unless you get that, you're probably not moving that quick, honestly. To me, you're not moving that quick. 600 horsepower when it weighs how much it doesn't compute to me.
Right. It's fast to me, man. I mean, I drove an R1T, the Rivian truck thing. One of my buddies works there. He's like, "All right, he went into the screen and like made sure all the power was doing whatever it was, and adding power with buttons is always fun." So he's like, "All right, just floor it." And I floored it, and it was so instantaneous. I felt like I had touched like an electrical cord, and I just yanked my foot off the throttle instantly because it was so instantaneous and violent. It was like nothing else I've ever felt in my life, like a 20 roll, just all the way to the floor. It just went There was no spool. There was no nothing. It was like having 800 naturally aspirated horsepower or whatever it was, just right now, right in the power band,
With
instantaneously.
zero sound, you have all the torque at 0 RPM, all that good stuff. Here's the thing about those. I've been in a plaid, doing with 4 other people. The owner was like, "Yeah, let's go for a ride," and shows us like the 0 to 60 and everything. It's impressive. It is impressive, especially for people that have never been around cars that make any kind of power. When you're in a car that makes 1,000 horsepower, no matter what it weighs, it has all the technology and everything to put that power down and do all that stuff. Now, I will say that I think EVs are like a party trick when they say it does 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. And it's like, that's not a sports car though. Like, that's not a sports car, right? You're not going to take it anywhere else and outperform an ice or like an ice car anywhere else other than like a 0 to 60 or something
The
like that.
Plaid did okay at the Nürburgring. I mean,
Yeah, I guess. I think they have their place. I think the whole EV thing is like, I think EV is an answer to transportation. It's not the answer to transportation, and it shouldn't be forced down our throats
no, of course
like the
not. Yeah,
government
I'm with you
tried
there.
to do at all.
Well, I think
So
you're
like,
seeing that for. It's been nice seeing the pushback from the public. It's
and
not
the
even like,
automakers
yeah, it's
and the
not. Well, the
automakers.
automakers came second. I feel
Yeah.
like the automakers have given. Imagine the amount of lobbying that went in to lobby. It's corporate cronyism, corporatism, right? So the I think the manufacturers go, hey, we have a way where we can make everybody all buy brand new shit. That sounds like we're going to make a ton of money. We are going to make a ton of money if we can somehow get it where everything that everybody's driving is going to get taxed more at the pump. They're going to add registration fees, whatever, to try and force the shift over to EV. So they're on board, right? So then they mosey their corrupt, scaly lizard people bodies over to Congress, and they go, "Hey guys," and the lobbyists do what they do, giving out hand jobs and flights to wherever and everything that they do to make things happen, all that crap. And then the American people go, and then Congress goes, okay. So then they pass all this stuff, 2025, 2030, everything's going to be this, everything's going to be that. No problem. We got your back. Loved the trip to Tahiti. Loved the trip to Epstein's Island. It was awesome. I'll get it done for you, right? I'll get it done. We'll get it passed in Congress. So all this stuff passes. All these things happen. It's all legal by 2030, 2035. Gavin Newsom's passing this, that, or the other thing. And auto manufacturers are happy. They start rolling things out, right? They start pumping this stuff. They're creating new factories. The Mach-E is coming out. This new Charger with the fake sound. They build that thing. Rivian comes up and Lucid comes up. All these companies start popping up because realistically, designing an EV platform is pretty easy. You get the batteries, you get the motor, you get the skateboard. Anybody can do it. There's a company in Turkey created like an EV. Anybody can create an EV, which by the way is pretty cool. I think that part's pretty cool. Anyway, so all these things are popping up. And pretty soon, there's billions spent on this. Billions of dollars. Volkswagen, billions. GM, billions. Ford, billions. But guess what? Nobody cares, man.
There's so many
nobody
EVs
cares.
just sitting on lots.
Nobody cares. They're
rotting.
Not buying it. And which makes me kind of think, it scares me a little bit because there's so much money that got pushed into all this EV stuff. How are these manufacturers going to just eat it? How are they going to eat all that money? Because this is all, people aren't buying them at anywhere near the rate that they thought they would without some sort of regulation or some way to force it down everybody's throats. People aren't into it. Used cars, the average age of a used car right now is 13 years, more than it's ever been in history. People are not buying new cars, period, let alone EVs.
Well, when they're so fucking expensive,
oh, dude.
Like they're like a Golf R right now is what, $55,000? Brother, 10 years ago that was a brand new Corvette.
Yeah,
$55,000. That's insane.
Well, that's inflation too. I mean, there's
a little bit more inflation the past few years than there has been normally. I'll say that. My grocery bill is about twice as expensive for zero reason. And
yeah,
that's
I go to the store and there's a reason. I mean, they printed all the money. I mean, there's definitely a reason for it. I don't grocery shop, but when I do, I pretty much leave with an empty cart. Like I I can't grocery shop for my family because I refuse to pay the prices that I
You go
see for
grab
everything.
something
I just
off the
walk out the
shelf that
door.
was $4.50 3 years ago. It's now $8.
Yeah.
What happened? That's crazy.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
crazy. In cars too, and EVs. Well, EVs are a premium thing right now. I think that's kind of the business model that they try to go with, was creating the luxury thing first, and then having that technology trickle down, because the luxury stuff is high margin. Like if you
here's
look
the
at,
thing. Here's the thing with the EVs. It's like if they're so good, like whether it be the auto manufacturers or the government's idea to force it down our throat, or both of their just teamed up idea to force it down our throat,
yep.
they can't force us to like them. Is the thing. They can try to make 30. They can try to make 80% of their lineup EVs, and has proven so far that we just don't want them.
Yeah, nobody
So
likes shit flavored ice cream. If you
the
go in,
markets.
if you go into the ice cream place and it's like Superman, butter pecan, vanilla, mint chocolate chip, and dog shit, nobody's gonna choose the dog shit ice
Hey,
cream.
hey, Chris.
Maybe
Now
the dog would
there
choose
will
the
be
dog shit ice
some
cream.
idiots out there, which there are idiots like buying EVs, that will be like, I kind of want to give shit dog shit a taste just to see if I. It might be an acquired taste. I might be sitting there the whole time eating it, saying this is actually not bad ice cream. You guys should try it,
Yeah.
just to get more people to buy EVs, or sorry, get the shit ice cream
Yep.
and be miserable with them.
How cheap does the dog shit ice cream have to be before you're gonna choose that? Even if the dog shit ice cream is free, I still don't want the dog shit ice cream, man. Even if they took all of the ice cream away and left only the 5 gallon thing of dog shit ice cream, and that was the only choice, I would still drive the ice cream that I've got home in my own freezer. And I feel like that's what people are doing. They don't want the dog shit ice cream.
Right, but if you convince your friends that the dog shit ice cream is just as good, if not better,
Yeah,
and it's
I
like
mean
just
it's
try it. Just if you don't like it, go back to the regular ice cream. It's fine. It's not going to be a big deal. But then you go to we'll just talk about EVs. We'll just go straight to EVs.
okay.
So when you look at the resale on an EV, I compare it to the same resale you would have on like a MacBook. They are laptops.
Hmm.
They like you buy a brand new Audi e-tron GT, gorgeous car, four door, their four door EV car, absolutely gorgeous car. You buy it for 90 grand. 2 years later, they're in the 40s.
Yep.
They have the resale value of a laptop. Like they're just like you're. Everybody sees them as just like a gadget instead of like an actual car, because it's kind of what they are. Like
Well, they're
unless
marketed as the
you.
future, right? It's always marketed as the future. There's no EV that's come out aside from maybe like the Kia EV thing that they have, a little SUV thing. Everything is like marketed as the future. Where's my like Datsun 510 of EV? Where's my Honda Civic hatchback EV? Right? Where's just the one that you don't even know that it's an EV? It just is.
Yeah.
It's still like a statement. It's still like the future, and it's never going to be something people want or desire or go after or purchase on a whim until it's just, or not even on a whim, because they just have to buy the appliance car until it just looks like a regular car. It's still the future.
Until like if EVs are people think they're people that have drank the Kool-Aid think EVs are so good, then just why don't force them down our throats? Just make them and people will buy them if they're better. If they're flat out better mileage, cheaper, they're more reliable. If every part of that is true, people will just start to buy them because they're the better product.
And
Okay.
I would 100% daily drive an EV. It's just I don't see any of them out there that I like right now.
Also, where you live, you need to think about your mileage
Oh yeah.
literally gets cut in half.
Yeah.
If it goes just below freezing, and you and I both know it gets cold as shit up in Minnesota. So
Yep.
your mileage would go from like 300 miles to 100.
Which technically would be okay on a daily basis, but I would still have to have a combustion engine car
You
as
see,
well.
do you just hear yourself? That'd really just be okay to get a third of the mileage I normally get. You're already
Yep.
becoming the
I
mindset of
know.
one of those EV people where they make excuses for why the car isn't as bad as it actually is as a car.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I don't need more than 100 miles. I'm not I guess I should say it's not okay. I just like I don't it wouldn't affect my life, right? So I would it's the trade-off of I could have an EV in my driveway, and even if it got 40% less mileage, as long as I got everywhere I needed to go, I wouldn't really care.
Right, but would you
It
be okay
wouldn't.
with paying 1.5 times the same amount as an ICE car?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
See,
not. I'm
there
not
you
there.
go.
So
There
that's
you
what I
go.
mean is
You
I
you are
would
right.
drive
If they
one.
did have the cheaper versions, and they weren't all just, oh, it's more expensive because it's the future.
Yep. I
Yeah,
want
if
a
they
Mark III EV. I want a Golf EV that's crank windows. I want a knob or a slider for the climate control. I don't need to know that it's 73.6 degrees in the car. I don't need to know that. I don't care. I need a Bluetooth amplifier. I don't need satellite radio. I don't need navigation. I don't need to know how many G's I'm pulling. I don't need a Think Blue that tells me if I'm driving. Like my Golf R it's a 2019. It's got so much I can look at the G's, how much kilowatt hour power it's making, how much PSI it's making. I can see the Think Blue trainer, which trains you on how to drive in a more economically environmentally friendly way. I don't need any of that. I want to turn knobs, push buttons, and just go. That is the EV that I would drive.
That's
It,
not the future, so they're not making that.
no, I am not the future. I'm just a dinosaur, man, at this point.
There is another kind of EV hybrid that Dodge is building, and they're calling it the Ram Charger. I don't know if you've heard of this yet.
No, no.
So it's got I believe it's a 6-cylinder generator, onboard generator, where the engine would be in the engine compartment, all that stuff, and it's got all the wheels are though driven by EV motors. So the gas engine does not connect to any of the wheels at all. It's all just electric motors. But
Yep.
the gas engine sits there and makes power for the EV system, so you don't sit there and charge for an hour or whatever
It's a
it is.
Prius.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
But instead of the Prius driving the wheels at all, this is all electric.
Okay.
So it's technically an EV that has an
It's like
onboard
the Dakar.
generator.
It's like that Audi Dakar truck that they had that had the FSI engine that acted as a generator and powered the EV. That's what it
Yes.
was. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And with that, they've been able to. This is a vehicle that's coming out. Like they built it, it's coming out, I think, next year. Makes over, and this isn't a half-ton pickup setup. It just looks like a Dodge 1500 pickup. Nothing crazy about it looking. But it has over 600 or 700 foot-pounds of torque, and the range is over 600 miles. That right there, I was like, that's the future. Right
Yeah.
there, that's the
Oh, that's
future
what they
of
should have
it.
done to
It's
begin with.
combining the two of them and getting the best of both worlds out of it instead of just trying to shove batteries down everybody's throat. I saw that and I was like, that's it right there. That's the
it.
answer.
Yeah.
And
It
they've
is.
also switched their performance stuff, Dodge SRT, all that stuff, to inline sixes, which have been very good at making power over the years for
Yeah.
in other manufacturers and everything like that. So like you look at Supras and stuff like that making over the new Supra is making over 1,000 and all that stuff. These inline sixes that they're making are pretty decent size. I think 3 liters, just like a 2J, and that has the right geometry. They should be able to make a lot of power with them.
Yeah, I think you're right that that's the way that it should have been. It should have been a graduated technological advancement instead of trying to go to the end. I mean, in the
Yeah,
end, having some sort of electric based car is probably where things will go. Once we get to solid state batteries and do some other things, and once the power grid can catch up, going straight to EV, 100% EV just wasn't it. I always thought that they should have done It's too bad Dieselgate happened, right, with Volkswagen, because they could have done a hybrid TDI setup
Okay, so
that
they
would have been
did that.
phenomenal.
They did that with the Volkswagen XL1.
Jeez,
That
I
was
don't
a
even know what that is.
if you have your computer up, I please Google it. It's like a two-seater. It's very narrow. The guy who was in charge of Volkswagen Group at the time in the early 2000s, he commissioned
I
the
remember this thing now.
Bugatti. What's that?
I remember seeing this thing now. Yeah.
He commissioned the Bugatti Veyron and the XL1 at the exact same time to have the most powerful car they could make and the most efficient car they can make. That thing was a TDI, like a 9/10 of a liter
Yep.
TDI hybrid, and it got 250 miles to a gallon.
There
But
we
they only
go.
did it in that one car, and
There we
then
go.
Dieselgate happened, and they don't have a market to sell them.
Yeah,
So we don't.
that's
So
too
we never
bad.
got them.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
diesel thing, the Volkswagen really messed that up for everybody. Nobody does diesel anymore because of that.
Well, that's because everyone else was doing the same thing, and they knew they'd get caught eventually.
Yep, they had their
They would
hands
start
really
looking
close to
for
the
it.
fire, and yeah, everybody was like, "Whoa, just kidding. We guess we're not doing that anymore."
Yeah, BMW is not associated with Volkswagen at all, and they were like, "Yeah, we're done too." It's like, why are you guys done? If you guys didn't do anything wrong, you guys, oh, because your efficiency numbers is coming from your car breaking the efficiency standards or whatever emission standards. That's how they're doing it.
I guess they just didn't send enough people to Epstein Island to circumvent that rule. I guess
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Just that. Yeah. The right people didn't get to where they were needed to go. Somebody missed a connecting flight or something.
So I wanted to touch base on one thing, and I hope this is okay to ask. And when I think of 1320 video and all the racing and stuff that happened, do you guys feel any responsibility with glorifying what is technically illegal? Obviously, you guys are observing, right? You guys are
Right.
observers. You're documenting what's happening, and I understand that. But do you feel any responsibility for like encouraging the behavior and encouraging any of that stuff?
I think some people will probably, like kids, will watch our videos. They get excited. They might want to do the same thing. But there's something very specific about the way we go about doing our racing or picking the races we go to. There's been street races we've shown up to where you'll see it's an 8th-mile race. There's people lining the street all the way down from the starting line on. We see that when we show up and we turn around and pack our cameras up. We don't film.
Hmm.
We try to do it. We understand it's dangerous. We understand bad things happen. Nothing's ever happened bad, like that bad, at a race we've ever been to, and we've been doing this for 20 years. Just going to say that. We're usually working with people that have been doing this a while. Nobody's first race. It's very organized. Nobody passed the starting line. We try to do it as safely as possible. We try to show people this is how you're supposed to do it if you're going to do it. This is the type of people we're with. But I'm sure, absolutely, there's probably kids out there that see what we do, get excited, want to go do it with their friends, and they don't know how to go about doing it, where to do it, anything like that. And bad things can happen. Now, we've never had a finger pointed at us like this instance was because they watched your video. But I'm sure, just like anything else, like even extreme sports, like kids will see something exciting on TV, they'll automatically want to go do it because they think it's cool.
Yep. I think we're going to have, at some point, there's going to be a rebellious sect of society no matter what. And I would argue that's good for society to have a rebellious streak in your society.
I mean, if you think about it, the only reason cars are as powerful as they are right now is because of street racing. Otherwise, if you just looked at it literally as the bus.
There's always motorsports too. Like,
that's where motorsports started on the street, because
true.
All of a sudden the first two guys that got a Model A in town, they want to see who's faster.
Yeah.
It started at 5-mile-an-hour races. It started since the beginning of time. You want to be you foot race your friend or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know it starts way back there, but it's just the only reason cars are making 1,000 horsepower out of the factory now is because the public is demanding them. Like, we want more power. We want to go faster when the speed limit is nowhere higher. Like the highest in the country is 85. So why are we building cars that do 200 miles an hour out of the factory?
Yeah, my Golf, will do 160 all day. My Golf R all day.
Yeah, it'll just sit there and hum.
They
Yeah,
won't even think about it.
yeah, and like it's like
How is
what?
that legal? How is it legal? Like, how
I
is
don't
like I
ask
think
those
about that all the
questions.
time.
You know why? It's because of freedom. Okay, that's why.
Yeah, there's a
That's
lot of
why.
other things that we don't have freedom for, but I'm glad that that freedom exists, and I think it's important to have that. I think it's important to choose whether you're going to be able to break the law or not,
Yeah,
because I
it
think it
should
gives
be.
you agency in your society that you know that other people around you are making the choice to be law-abiding citizens. Not always, but generally, people are making the choice. I think that makes for a better world.
Right. But I think in 50 years' time, it'll just be sending your kids off in your car to school. You just put in the address, you send your kids off to school, the car comes back 20 minutes later, and that's how you transport places. So I really see us as we could be one of the last generation. Now, I'm not going to say it's happening tomorrow, but we could be one of the last generations of people that have our own autonomous transportation in that way, where it's every car right now you can go out and drive wherever you want, and in 50 years time I could see it being very few cars you could just go out and drive wherever you want,
Yeah, and I don't
or
like
they'll
that
just tax
because
the shit out of them, like, oh, you drive your own car, it's an extra $1,000 a year to drive your own car
that's what it'll
at the
be.
DMV.
Is you'll have the tabs will be, oh, your car, you're able to operate this without AI. Wow, that's an extra 20%. We've got a fee that's like it'll be like some sort of they'll have some name for it that makes it sound like it's totally for safety and everything else. And
Oh, it'll
they'll
be sold completely as safety, and
yeah.
80% of people will be all for it, and the small sect that won't are car guys. And if you can kill car guys to the point where they can't drive their cars anymore, then like car guys just won't exist anymore and the market will just be gone.
Yeah, I think it goes beyond car guys though. I think even I mean, I feel like there's a little bit of car guy in most people. And I don't mean to be like gender assigning. Like obviously women love cars too. Car guy is just kind of like a ubiquitous term. But when I think there's a little bit of car guy in most people. Someone that loves like their car when they floor it or whatever and stuff like that. I think that's tough to remove from people. I'm hoping that even if the enthusiast car guy disappears, that there'll be enough people that want agency and personal freedom and the ability to go where they want, when they want, which is what I love so much about cars, is that you can hop in it and go anywhere.
Ever since I
Especially
was 16, it's been the biggest freedom in the world.
it is, and it's wild how many kids aren't getting their driver's licenses now.
Oh my god, dude. My I have nephews. So I don't have any kids, but I have a bunch of nephews and they're all getting up to the age, like the oldest one has been driving for a year now, and they're all getting up to those ages of like wanting to drive, and I was like, "Do you want to learn how to drive stick?" Like cuz he's driving, but I think it took him like a year to get the license to begin with. And I was like, "That's kind of weird." Me and all my friends got licenses when we were kids.
Instantly, 15 and a half, you got your temps. Let's go. How
Yeah,
soon can we make this happen?
just go. And I was like, hey, I haven't ever known the kid to be into cars at all, but hey, do you want to learn how to drive stick? It's just like a life skill. And I was like, I'll take you out on one of my cars. We can learn, not the Corvette, but we can take it out in Harlequin. It's
Yeah,
slow,
yeah.
and I can teach you how to drive stick. And he's like, no. He literally laughed and said no. Like I asked him, do you want to come start up my Model T with me by hand? Like that's how he looked at me, and I was like, really? And then a bunch of my friends' kids, zero interest in driving cars. Just they don't. I was like, we live in Nebraska, right? Same state where you got to drive literally anywhere to get anywhere. There's no public transportation, nothing. And these kids zero interest in getting a car, driving a car, anything like that.
I think I mean, I blame that, of course, on social media, right? You have access to, you know, I'm not
That's
sure
true.
exactly how old you are, but I'm 43 and
I'm
I had ever,
36.
okay. So
36.
still when you were 16, 15, 14, you still had to, I still had to memorize phone numbers when I was a kid and
Oh
go,
yeah.
doot. Hello, what are you doing? Yeah, let's do that. Now it's, you can, my kids will, play, I have very limited screen time and I think we are on the right path because I feel like when I talk to other people that have kids, we're almost like bragging how little screen time we give our children. Like, well, I only give them like an hour and a half. You give them an hour and a half. I only give them a half an hour. And then the guy that gives them an hour and a half feels bad. He's like, oh, obviously I'm spoiling my kids with too much screen time. So I think there's a little bit of a reaction to that. But my kids will put like an iPad like when they're playing video games with one of their friends, so they can see the other person, or they'll just be coloring and they'll have like a video call up and they'll just be like hanging out with the other person while the other person is at their house. And I just go, do you want to just go over there? I'll just drive you over there, and it's a different form of communication now. However, I think has been kind of a pushback on social media and all that stuff. So maybe this next generation, like my kids and younger, as they come up, are going to be a little bit more independent and want to get out a little bit more, because I think social media has really fucked up the
Or they'll be too scared to go out and do anything. Some of these kids,
well, that's why they call it the anxious
because they
generation,
haven't
right?
had to.
Yeah. Well, my kids are being forced to. It is
No, that's fine. But some kids are just gonna their whole world's gonna be on the internet from like being a kid all the way to graduating high school, and then college they have to go somewhere and do
yeah.
something and somewhere they've never been. All of a sudden, anxiety is a big issue. And it's like this shouldn't be an anxious situation at all.
Yep.
Some kids.
I think we're coming back though. I think society is starting to realize. A book came out recently called The Anxious Generation, and it was like New York Times bestseller. I've seen the dude all over social media. He's been on all kinds of podcasts. And I'm starting to see, even around here, several of the schools, you're not even allowed to bring your phone on the bus.
See, we
Your
couldn't
phone
have
stays at
phones. I
home.
mean, we're quite a bit older, but I couldn't have my phone out in school for
No,
anything. But
no
I,
way.
like I'm sure that some people probably use it for, oh, I'm Googling something or I'm doing calculations on the calculator, whatever it is. But yeah, I couldn't have one as a kid. And I think that's probably, they shouldn't have them. They should just be focused on learning when they're at school.
You'd think so, but this is kind of a new phenomenon
It
where
is.
where it's like people would go to their locker and get their phone or their whatever, and they'd be in the hallway walking, zombified on their phone or whatever. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a future generation that maybe will. I don't want to just tie it specifically to driving, because I think wanting to drive is a symptom of seeking independence, right? If you want to drive somewhere, it's because you don't want to be where you are. You want to go somewhere else, and wherever that place is has the thing that you want, rather than just seeking what it is that you want on your phone or on social media or something like that. So I see the car as one of the antidotes to this. Hopefully, my kids. My oldest can almost reach the pedals, and as soon as, like, when the seat's all the way forward, as soon as she could push that clutch pedal all the way to the floor, she's driving. And they sit on my lap. They drive. They reach up. I'll be like, third gear, and they'll reach over and grab it and do all the shifting and stuff for me. And um, I don't know what other people's
That's also
parents are
being
doing.
around you the whole time, though. Growing up being around you, I'd probably be into cars too.
Yeah, but my grandpa wasn't really a car guy, right? But he was a guy that kind of fixed stuff. He was the guy that he was, like I said earlier, he was an engineer, and he would always fix everything before he would ever pay anybody else to do it. So when something broke on the car, you had to fix it. And then you would go for a drive and see if you fixed it or not, or if you had to do it over again. And I would always go for the drive to see if it was fixed. And, I was always in the car driving around, and we went on road trips. And I think it definitely is something that's passed down. And I don't know what other dads are doing, but whatever it is, they need to start encouraging outside play, road trips, travel, exploring, risk, all these different things that just don't seem to be happening anymore. And these kids that aren't getting their driver's license and are okay with Ubering around, that ain't it, man. That
No.
ain't it.
They said, well, especially that sounds so foreign to us, but just seeing how other kids, I know there's kids these days growing up that are into cars and want to drive,
Oh, sure.
but like this is just the largest number I've ever heard of kids becoming of the age to drive, and none of them, and a bunch of them aren't interested. Because, like you said, everything's on their phone. They don't have to go anywhere to hang out with their friends or do anything. It's like, but that gets you like, they don't understand. They get like social skills from that.
Yeah.
Being able
Well,
to
that's
read somebody's body language in person is kind of a skill everyone needs in life to be able to do some sort of version of that. And if you're not in person with them, it's probably gonna be pretty hard to do.
yeah, you're not going to be able to learn how to read that stuff. And I mean, that starts from a very early age. And I think, in the 2010s, a lot of parents, you know, did overdid the screen time a little bit. Like me, I kind of had this. Even my kids are 9 and 10, going on 10 and 11, and I had this feeling that this stuff was bad for my kids. Right? I just had this like, this can't be good, right? You'd be at the grocery store and somebody's kid would be in a cart and they'd have an iPad and they'd be watching YouTube on an iPad as their parents are grocery shopping. And the parents, probably because the kid is a piece of shit kid and screams and runs in circles and grabs the chocolate chips and throws them in the air. Right?
It's definitely a quick fix for a lot of parents. They just turn them into an iPad kid, and it's like, oh, I want my kid to shut up for the next 30 minutes. Here's an iPad.
Yep. But I always felt like I would see that. I'm like, that's not good. And I gave when my kid was, I love video games, man. I used to play video games all the time. So of course I wanted to play video games with my daughter. So I got her an Xbox and got her Fortnite. She was playing. And I remember one time I went there, I'm like, hey, you got to turn that off. And she threw a fit. And I go, that is not my daughter. Who is this person that's acting this way?
That's an addict.
And it was instantly, there was no more Xbox. Once it took one time and that Xbox was gone, and then we reintroduced it later and we said, hey, actually, here's what I told her. I said, do you think that was good? And she, of course, no. I'm like, let me know when you feel like you can handle having this again. And then she came to me, I think it was almost like a year later. Hey, can I have an Xbox again? I gave it back to her and there's been no problem since. I don't know. It's weird. My kids will drive. I know it. I know my kids will. Like I said, I don't know what other dads are doing out there that their kids don't want to drive. Like, who are these men that are creating these children that don't want to drive? I don't get it. I don't know. They probably also aren't sharpening chainsaws either. I don't know.
No, absolutely. They're not. They're calling their buddy with a chainsaw to come over and do stuff for them.
Yeah, the guy that has the kids that want to drive and no iPads. Fred, thanks for coming on the podcast to hang out with me, man.
Absolutely.
Did you decide what car you're bringing on the rally? I know you've got the 3 to choose from. What are you doing?
I told Zach I'm going to put it up to him that way.
Zach DePiro.
Yeah. So he is the other Harlequin.
Yep.
And I said, "Are you taking the Harlequin?" And he said, "Well, I'm trying to get the diesel running, maybe." And I was like, "Okay, if you take the Harlequin, I'll take my Harlequin. If you take the diesel, I'll take the Corvette." And he said, "All right, deal." I don't think he's going to get the diesel done, so I think we're going to be rolling 2 Harlequins deep in Arkansas.
Dude, that thing is legit fast. His TDI. Golf.
Is it?
It's okay. I got to remember who I'm talking to. That thing is legit peppy.
It's a torque. It's a baby torque monster for sure.
It is. It's got to have like 200 and 250 horsepower, probably 350, 400.
At least 300 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, I had a little TDI for like 11 years. Those things can be little torque monsters, absolutely.
It was. But we were driving around tiny little Connecticut roads with traffic everywhere, so maybe it felt faster than it was, but it felt like it scooted pretty good.
Well, I think that's the game plan. Is right. If he brings the Harlequin, I'm taking the Harlequin. If he's taking the diesel, I'm taking the Corvette. Neither car has that much prep to do. But so I'm just going to prep both of them. This is a lot of the prep stuff is stuff I probably should have done to the cars over the past year just for driving prep purposes, but I haven't. So I'm just going to prep both of them, and then Zach's going to decide which cars we're taking.
Well, the Corvette shouldn't need much. You brought it to Oregon, right?
It needs a steering box because that's literally the only part of I swear to God, the whole damn car that I didn't replace was the steering box.
Can they be adjusted? Is there like an adjustment screw on them?
There's all the adjustments out.
Okay.
Like I adjusted it on the rally last year, and I got to the point where it was you could tell this was the limit, and I all of a sudden had less steering angle all the way, and I was like,
oh, nice.
Yeah, so I need a steering box for that, and that should be really it for that. I hate the wheels. The wheels are absolutely terrible. They've been on the car for way too long. So I'm doing something about the wheels, but other than that, the car's rally ready.
What do you want to do for wheels? That replica torque thrust, like a big 17-inch torque thrust or something?
It's like basically an 18-inch torque thrust is what it looks like.
Okay.
So all the wheel options for those cars are boomer spec. There's only boomer options, boomer wheels. 7 inches wide is about your limit on those cars with stock bodies to stock frame because of how they put the frame way far out. So I'm actually getting, I actually had the wheel 3D scanned, and I sent it over to a buddy overseas, and he designed up some turbofans for these wheels.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So they're gonna bolt onto the wheels, and you're not gonna be able to see how ugly the wheels are that I hate. You're just gonna see a turbofan.
Right on.
So I don't know if they're gonna look good or not, but
Well,
I'm
you'll
so
find out.
tired of looking at
What
those
about
wheels.
some
So
Panasports or mini lights or something? I mean, I just think of like Trans Am, racing back in the early 70s and
the
stuff.
one wheel I would do would be like a Steely, because I think those looked cool on those cars
Yeah.
back in the day. But everything else is literally just like I've seen that on you Google C2 Corvette with aftermarket wheels, they're all the same. It's every boomer in the world gets the same wheel.
Yep.
And I was different by putting 18s on my car back in the day, but they just don't. I'm not, yeah,
Yeah, it's
not
one
a
thing
big fan
about
of them.
the hot rod culture. It's like Chip Foose and Boyd Coddington like put worms in everybody's brains, and like that's the only thing you're allowed to do
They
now is
they
one of those two guys.
turned those two guys. Now the work that they did is really really good,
I don't
but
want to take anything away from them
it
at
is.
all.
But some of their designs was like taking a muscle car and turning it into a Hot Wheels car.
Yes,
I will say
which
that.
was cool, but guys, everyone listening out there, you don't have that skill. Just by bolting the wheels on the car, you're missing the whole rest of the painting
Yeah,
that none of us have the skill to be able to do because these cars cost like $400,000 to build with the shave bay and the paint and the chopped and lowered and all these things that you need to do to make these cars look cool. Just tacking one thing on ain't it.
some of those show cars are millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm good buddies with a shop over in Colorado. They build cars. They almost, I don't want to say they specialize, but two of their cars I've seen had they were bare metal. And any car that's bare metal and it's sitting in a show or sitting at, you look over, it's like there isn't a dent anywhere on the car. When you think about that, every car has like some layer pretty much of like
Filler.
body
Yeah.
filler skimmer on it, something like
Yep.
that. These cars are 100% perfect with no paint. And you look at that car, and as a car guy, you just look at that and your jaw drops. Every corner, everything's been perfectly beat out, no dents in it. And the car is original body 1949. Brother, that's like putting thousands of hours into something that nobody would care about if you put paint over it. But
Well,
they
needless
don't.
to
And
say, that world is not what you have as a regular dude living in the suburbs with your
absolutely not.
3 car garage. What I really don't understand is why more people don't do the weekend race, like the 70s weekend racer look, hot rod look, like the Trans Am spec, like SCCA, old Trans Am, Mustang, pony car, old NASCAR look with hand painted stuff on the side.
I love that stuff, and
Nobody
that's
does
honest.
that. Why?
That's what's that?
Nobody does it. Nobody
I
does. Nobody
I
builds
don't
cars
know
that look
because
that way.
my Corvette. So when my dad got it way back in the day, like '68, something like that, he actually built it from two Corvettes. So he bought a '64 that had nose damage, but nothing was done to the frame, nothing wrong with it. And then he bought a '65 that got blasted in the rear. And so that's why the car looks like it does. It's '64 with a '65, '66 front end on it, and it was raced in the '60s. It had a big roll bar that went taller than the windshield all the way over, big bar coming from like here down to the passenger like wheel
Yep.
well, full on race car back in the day. And he turned it into a street car. And something that inspired me to put the stickers on the car I just did like last week. I was taking the meatballs off the car from the rally last year, and I really like how they look and everything. And I looked up pictures of old race cars and stuff. I was like, this car actually does have like race car lineage in it. It was a race car
Yep.
when like its very early life. I was like, I have no idea what it looked like back in the day. It was white or 5 different colors when my dad put it together, whatever it was. I was like, I'm just going to do this. So that's why I asked you about what color the vinyl was that you guys used on those stickers.
Yep.
I found a vinyl at the shop nearby that had it's like a weathered white. It's like a vintage white type looking color. My favorite number is 19. Put those on the car, and it changed the whole look of the car to me. It looks really cool. I love the way it looks with the 4 stickers on it. Just doing that, I think the car looks so much better. And just like it's not like one of those boomer cars that's $100,000 restoration or anything like that. Everything that's been done to the car has either been done by my dad or myself, and the car's not perfect. The body could use probably $50,000 worth of work done to it. Like, but it's a driver. It's got dings in it. It's got scratches in it, and it looks the part already. Throwing the stickers
Is your
on it
dad
just
still
made it.
around? Your dad's still
Well,
kicking?
he passed away when I was 9.
Okay.
So he passed away, and the car sat in the back of the garage for about 7 years. And then when I turned 16, my mom asked what I wanted for my birthday, and I said just to get the Corvette running. That was literally all I wanted. So my dad had two brothers. They're both older than him. My uncle flew up from Florida for Christmas that year. My birthday's in November, so Christmas is the next month. Flew up with his family, and then me and him spent like 7 days under the car, like just pulling. Like I learned a bunch of stuff. We first of all we got it running in like 45 minutes, which was amazing to me because I had been running 7 years. Took it out for a drive. Also crazy to me because I hadn't ridden in the car in 8 years, and my dad was the last person that I had ridden in the car with. Took the car out. He said the clutch was shot and a couple other things. We get back. We spend the next 7 days taking the car apart a little bit and getting it running and reliable. And then once we did that, it was like Christmas morning, I think. We took the car out to a parking lot nearby, and I learned how to drive stick on that thing. So that car, that's a lifer car. That car is not going anywhere. I've literally told friends the whole rest of the garage, my house, everything could burn up in a fire. As long as I still had that one car, I wouldn't really care that much.
What about any pictures of that thing from when your dad had it? Do you have anything that's like?
I'd have to go to So I've been wanting to do that recently. When my mom and dad first started dating, he painted it white. I think it was Oxford white. And then when they got more serious dating, he put her initials on the door in like paint.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty. I was like, that sounds kind of spicy. He just showed up one day and it was on there. It was funny is when they went on their first date in the car, she called it a piece of crap because it was like 4 different colors or whatever. Yeah. But I think I have to go to my mom's house, but I'm sure there's pictures of it when it was white. And then when I was a kid, it was black. And I remember the conversation we had in the kitchen when I was like 5 or 6, my dad asking what color we should paint it. And I thought it should have been yellow, but he painted it red. Probably a better decision, honestly. But yeah, I could probably look for some photos of that thing way back in the day. But
that'd be cool to see, like if you could find something that would show, what it looked like when he first got it or something,
Oh, I don't know if there's any photos. God, I wish like cell phones were a thing back then with cameras, because I would have so many photos of that thing and be able to see what it looked like and what car. I am told that it had like a duckbill rear end on the back of it, kind of like old race cars did back then. Yeah. And then on a date with my mom, a deer smoked it in the rear, like right behind the driver's door. So he had the only part that was like a race car part of it left. He took off and put another rear end on. Right. So that car is nowhere near original or anything like that. But that's the one car I wouldn't sell for any amount of money.
Yeah, who cares though? I mean, it's I like cars with stories, man.
I love cars with stories. I love cars that have like the patina of a car can tell a story. And like it can tell a story of it was driven every day by this little old lady, and it has the scratches from her keys hitting the same spot every day or whatever it is. Or it can be a patina of it sat in somebody's garage for 40 years and deteriorated away. That's always the coolest kind of patina to me. Is not the patina that they tried to make or anything, whatever. It's the patina that tells a story, and you can ask them, "Where'd you find the car?" And they'll be, and there's always a story where it was like under this tree on their neighbor's property for years, would never sell it. The guy finally died. The wife sold it. There's always some sort of cool story when it comes to patina. And that's what I love it when people, kind of like my car, everything engine, motor-wise, every wire in the car I replaced last year. Mechanically, that car is as good as any car, any C2 out there. Probably better, honestly. But I left the story of the car. Like the scratches my dad had from chipping the paint on this, or this. I love it when people make the car mechanically sound they can drive it and do anything they want with it, but they leave the story of the car. They leave the paint, the patina, all that stuff. If they still have the rusty wheels on it, that's even more of a plus to me, because it's like this thing sat somewhere and somebody said that still has life in it. That's John Ludwig. I love his stuff. Me and him are good buddies. I love all of his builds that he does with the patina stuff.
Well, you're coming up like a week or two after his episode. He was just on.
I saw that. I haven't watched it, but I did see that.
My favorite patina is the old pickup trucks where you could tell that the dude had his arm on the door sill
Oh
for
yeah.
like 20 years, and it's
Yeah.
just the wear mark. Like the dude's arm wore the paint out, man. That's the best, dude. I love that. That's my favorite patina.
Yeah, just like you can tell it's like an old school paint job, maybe original. It's been sitting somewhere or been used and just abused and just left somewhere. Doesn't run, and then you make it mechanically sound and put it back on the road. Like you gave a car that was everyone forgot about, nobody cared about, and you gave it life again. And that was like bringing like the soul of the car back to life.
Yeah.
It's still the same car. You didn't change the way it looked at all. You left the story, but now it's better running than it has been in decades.
Yeah,
I love
the
those
tool
kind of
has
builds.
another life. The tool has another life. I'm looking for an AMX Javelin that's like
Oh
that.
my god, dude. Those so there's a kind of racing they call it drag and drive. So you have to drive your race car from track to track. It's normally a 5 day long event.
Yep.
And sometimes it'll be 1,000, 1,400 miles. You can't trailer your car. You're using your car to trailer your tools everywhere around. And there's a car that does that. That does 6 second averages in the quarter mile, and it's a Javelin, and it's just a gorgeous. It made me fall in love with javelins because I asked him about it because I knew Javelin AMX Javelin was a thing, but I'd never seen one in person like this before, and I was like, did you like modify the body to make the arches so dramatic to slam? And he's like, I was like, this is how they are in person. He's
Yeah,
like,
the
didn't
Coke
touch it,
bottle
dude.
fenders. Yeah.
They look so aggressive, and I
Yeah.
love the way those cars look. It's what this the guys back in the '60s, whoever was designing those things, they were on a different planet because those were spaceship looking things, and they got approved by corporate, which is the craziest thing. Because these days, you design something crazy, you might see it as a concept or a render, you never see it go to production.
Yeah.
There's some cars over the years that just should have never made it to production, especially in the early 2000s that did.
Yeah.
And back in the 60s, anything went. You could put an angle on anything,
I
and it
know.
was
There's
just
so much
go.
less risk. I think that was just right now, anybody makes a mistake, their neck is out. And everybody's like, oh, we can't risk any damage to the shareholders and all this other shit. And, nobody wants to take
There's
risks.
an interesting way that I heard that GM does. I'm sure other companies do this too, but GM does some of their engineering where it's an engineering team, and one car you might engineer the air vents on the car,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next you get to design the outside of the car, and it's like the same guy gets to do this. So there'd be some. I don't have any examples off top, but there's some cars that have been like legendary GM cars that have come out over the past 20 years. And it's like, oh, that guy designed like the center dash like stick lever or whatever it is, or like the shifter in this car that was trash. But then he designed this whole car over here. It's crazy how how engineers can get so much better at what they do over the years, and some of the cars that they
Or if
can
they're allowed leash to do what they need to do or do what they want to do. Sometimes
right.
they're so hamstrung by, like I had he wasn't on the podcast, but I interviewed him a long time ago, Akim Anscheit, and he was head of design at Bugatti, and I
Oh
interviewed
shit.
him and hung out with him in Germany, and we were talking over dinner or whatever. I was like, what's harder to design? Because he worked at Porsche and he did some other things. I was like, was it harder to work for like some of these cheaper companies, or is it harder to work for Bugatti? He's like, oh, it's way harder to work for like it would be way harder to work for like Honda or something, because there's so many like restrictions and guidelines, and everything is like, oh well, it can only be this, it can only be that, it's got to be within these parameters, it can only weigh this much, we only have this much to spend, blah blah blah. There's so much bean counting going on. Whereas something with like Bugatti, you've got such a leash that the designer can really do whatever they want, because they're
Have you seen the new one?
yeah, I mean they look like hypercars to me. I don't know, they don't really.
I don't know how they did what they did. They like it's called the like tourbillon or something like that. It's French. I'm
Yeah,
the
of course.
butcher, whatever it's called. I just butchered the fuck out of it. Uh, but they like tried to integrate so many parts of like high end watches into it, which I guess is the tourbillon thing or whatever. It's like mechanical stuff in the car that shouldn't be, has never been mechanical, like speedometers and stuff like that. The whole gauge cluster is mechanical. There's just like stuff in the car that why did you do this? It's we got inspiration from modern like high end watches, and so you can tell just
Yeah,
like how the gauges are, how the
it's too
car
much.
is.
It's too much for me, man.
I mean, it is. I do appreciate what they do because they're like, even though those cars I'll never be able to afford, what they do will eventually, in 20 years' time, trickle down to modern cars.
Sure.
Like the Veyron, there's technology from the Veyron getting down to like shitty Volkswagens these
Dude,
days.
the Veyron. I got a ride in a Veyron one time. And that is an experience.
I've never ridden
It's
in one.
the
I
sound is so mechanical and there's so many gear driven things in that car that it feels like a 1,000 horsepower Rolex. It's
uh,
it's it,
so
it's
I've
so bizarre the way that it just feels like I feel like metal is being just driven by gears and it's turning and there's no belts there. I'm sure there are belts, but it just doesn't feel that way. It just feels so utterly mechanical.
and it feels effortless with power. And
It was effortless. And I just look over at the speedometer. I'm just like, holy shit. And I explain that to people as like, it felt like the hand of God just because it was like, there was no violence.
now
There
that
was no
so I,
violence with that car.
that might be. So I was going to say that I've ridden in so many 1,000 horsepower cars over the years. It's hard to keep track. Probably hundreds, literally at this point. But those are like 1,000 horsepower, like 5.3 junkyard motors making 1,000 and all that. They make good power and everything, but riding in something that's probably as quiet as a Veyron, making 1,000 horsepower, doing the things it's doing would be a completely different sensory experience because
Your
all you
wife
hear
could
is
put her
like,
makeup on. She could do all her makeup in the vanity mirror while you're doing it. That's what's wild.
that's the difference is I ride in cars that are just violent. Just they're made for racing, they're made for wide open throttle. Not a lot of them are tuned for just street. Some are, but they're not tuned to just cruise at 60 and then after 45 minutes of driving just floor it to do 240 or whatever those things. 254 is what those things did back in the day. But like that's a different. That car can cruise to the grocery store, or you can take it on the highway and do 250 some miles an hour, and then let out of it, and then make the stop sign and pick your kid up from school. You might, if you do that in one of the cars I've ridden in, you could probably do it, but you're a cowboy at that point doing
I
some of
would
that
love to
stuff.
take one of those motors apart. If I could somehow get one of those, what are the W16 or something, right? And
Yeah,
just
W16.
disassemble it. The sound, the sound like a straight cut gearbox makes, but it kind of goes chin 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 chin
Yeah.
chin, and
Yep.
it chatters and stuff like this.
Oh
This
yeah.
was like it was like if someone made those, but Jesus made the gearbox, and so it had kind of like this whine to it, but it sounded so harmonious. Like this is
That probably
exactly
wasn't
what
by
this is meant to
accident
be doing.
either. They probably
No,
heard a sound and they're like, change the gear angle by zero point 0.5 of a degree. I want this
yeah,
sound
yeah, and there
louder.
needs to be grooves on the gear that are this far apart, and they need to have a helical angle of this. And yeah, I mean, it was all. If you're designing $1 million car, like I said, you've got enough leash that you can do stuff like that. It
I
just
saw it was like a for sale ad for just the headlights of a Bugatti Chiron. 147,000 pounds over
whew,
in the UK. Or sorry, it was in Europe, euros. It was
well,
in euros.
find another pair.
Like 147,000 just dollars. $150,000 for just the headlights on one of those cars. That's insane.
It is. And I when I look at something like a Chiron or a Veyron, and Akim said the Chiron is probably the last of the real supercars. Everything after that is going to have hybrid systems in it, and it's going to have all kinds of electronics and stuff
Hmm.
like that. The Veyron, I think he was even alluding more as to the Veyron. He's like, this is it. This is the one. The Veyron is the one. Um, I'll if you want, I'll send you the audio of the interview if you want to listen to it. It's
Oh
pretty.
yeah.
It's kind of like tinny because it's like recorded on Google Voice. Because this is pre-podcast. I think it might be available for our Patreon members. Shout out Drivers Club if you want to hear me talk to
I'm
the
on the
head.
drivers club.
It's in
Yeah.
there, dude.
Join me. Join me. Yeah.
Look on the list of all the exclusive episodes on the top of the Drivers Club. My interview with Akim might be there.
Okay.
But I mean, it's man. He was alluding to. He's like, I hope that this never gets taken away from us. And he was alluding to the Veyron was really the last of its kind. There will never be anything like that. Look at what Ferrari's doing. Everything's got hybrid motors and turbo this and turbo that and hybrid
Both
drivetrain this.
new both new Lambos, the V12 and the new V8 twin turbo are both hybrids.
They have to do these things though, right? I mean, if there is technology, sorry if I'm keeping you too long.
Dude,
If there's
you're good.
like you think of the technology of needed to get people to buy a new car, right? So over the last 30 years, since the advent of, let's go back to like the 70s, when the advent of the late 60s, the advent of the shoulder belt, right? And then you had carburation turn to fuel injection, like what came in your Corvette, or CIS came along. And then there was like, and after that, it was like Motronic, and you had different kinds of fuel systems. And there was just all these advancements. Then we had ABS, and whoa, we've got disc brakes, and then what else came out? Like I said, airbags and rollover and crumple zones, and fuel economy went up. Oh, let's add turbochargers, direct injection, sequential gearboxes. Look at this. What we can do, this torque converter, paddle shifters. Oh my God. Like all these different things were like continually advancing, right? It was a constant march of technological evolution. And then we got to this point where what else can we do? What else can we do? And I'm sure the manufacturers are, thank God this hybrid shit came out, because we're running out of shit to do. Because you have like, if you look at like my Golf R engine, direct injection, 2-liter FSI turbo engine, makes 300 horsepower or 320 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque, maybe 350 horsepower. That's insane out of a factory. It's chipped, but almost a factory 2-liter turbo car that you can just buy off the shelf, chip it, and it has that. We're to the point now where everything is running so much compression, so much timing, so much boost, and everything is so safe. You know, we've got airbags everywhere, adaptive cruise control, lane assist, all these things. What else are they able to do? What else can manufacturers do that's going to make you go, I need a new car? Other than the eternal, perpetual keeping up with the Joneses, right? That you have the new car. Other than that, why? I mean, this circles right back to why EVs became a thing, I think, for the manufacturers and trying to push it. Because we're so advanced with the technology that we have. There's nothing that a new car could offer that my Golf R doesn't give me that I would want, that I can think of.
Now, you make a good point there. It's almost the same thing with like a phone, right? So this is an iPhone. This is probably the same kind of iPhone that most millionaires, billionaires. I'm not saying I'm special. This is just a fucking iPhone. But you can't be a billionaire and buy a better phone than this. Just like you go out there and you buy a brand new car, it could be a shitbox car. It has technology in it that cars didn't have 20 years ago, like high-end cars. So it's like you do have to find something else to be able to sell a higher end car than this, and because I don't know any cars that have roll up windows anymore, like by hand. That was like at least an economy thing that you could say, hey, this car is a shitbox because you have to pull up the window. Now every car has it. It's like
a Hyundai is every bit as good as a new Mercedes. Like a fully loaded Hyundai has pretty much everything that a fully loaded Mercedes has.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dude,
like
this
Apple
Mercedes
CarPlay.
SUV, I get into this thing and I hit this button and it brings up like, how do you want the display to look? And it's got this mode, that mode, it's got sport mode, and then it had this like solitude mode or something like that. And you hit this button and the whole screen goes black and it just shows you like a little sliver of your speed between, like, if you're going 55, it shows 50 to 60 and then it shifts around with you like that. The rest of the screen is black, and then it has a dark side of the moon prism with rainbows shooting out of it.
See, that's where the extra money comes from, because I don't think you're getting that in a Kia.
That's what I'm saying. That's all that's left. Everything else is the same. They both have hybrid drivetrains. They both have great stereos, ABS. They have all the things. Everything has everything. There's nothing left. There's nothing left to do.
I will say reliability is a big thing. And going in many places I do and getting as many rental cars as I do, I will say that most cars are just shit boxes these days.
They are.
Like, and a car company really has to care to like make a good car these days. And they normally don't, because they're not selling to people that care that much. They're selling to just people that want a car or a new car or whatever it is. And it, like, I swear every domestic car company, unless it's a truck or a specific sports car, all of their cars and every part of their lineup is a shitbox.
Yeah.
Any Kia or Hyundai, I don't care how fancy you try to make them. They're just consumer cars. I had a Hyundai last week in Arizona, the shifter, which was a push button.
Yeah.
I want to go in reverse, drive, whatever. I was just trying to back into my parking spot at the hotel, and all of a sudden it wouldn't go into reverse. This car had 17,000 miles on it. it wouldn't go in reverse. I was like, this is weird. So I just pulled it away and stopped. I was like, all right, let me see if I can figure something out. Put it in park. And then all of a sudden, it wouldn't go in any other gear. And then I could put it in neutral, but as soon as you start to push it, it detects that and locks up the e-brake, and you couldn't deactivate the e-brake because you couldn't get into the computer screen at all, because all it said was shifter malfunction, service immediately. And I was like, this is a brand new car, 17,000 miles. And somebody didn't like, one of the things in the computer didn't like me pushing a button at a certain time. And we had to get a new rental.
That's
there's
insane,
shit, yeah, every car can have the same technology as newer cars and all that stuff. Newer car, or luxury cars, but luxury cars just reliability and fancy stuff, like solitude mode. You can go in a 4-cylinder Mustang and hit like different colors on the dash, make it pink, purple, blue, yellow, whatever you want, and that's fancy. But just hitting one button and does all those different things, that's rich people stuff.
It is. There. Like you would hit the cruise control thing, and like a little behind the speedometer circle, a little bezel would show up that was like a metal ring, and then it had like a little arrow, like a little metal thing that was pointing at where your speed was, and you could move it around. And then if you slowed down enough, it would touch it, and it would sparkle like when you touched it. Dude,
it's the little things in life, Chris. That's what they're selling you on.
Essentially, that's what you're paying for, is some engineer to design that crap. So
now,
when you go look at a new Mercedes, just remember that you're paying for solitude mode and dark side of the moon to be reappropriated into your Mercedes.
Now, I will say, I think they tried to get us there for a little bit when BMW, as far as getting new money out of people, as far as, hey, you got to pay a monthly subscription for our heated seats.
Yeah.
As soon as that was announced or heard about, I think the public told them what they didn't like, and they immediately got rid of that. I was like,
yeah, but that's going to come anyway. They're
how are you going to have the heated seat element in the seat, the button right there, and then one day you hit it and you're like, didn't pay my $5 this month, my bad. Like, what? No, that's a feature in the car. I can't imagine, like, old car, like the Corvette. One day it's got a 4-speed Muncie rock crusher, so it's like more straight cut gears, so it almost sounds like a straight cut transmission. And then, so 4-speed Muncie, and then I have a gear vendor's overdrive after that. So electronic overdrive. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, clutch in, hit the button, and then it goes into 5th, and I clutch out, and we're good. If I someday hit that button and it just things popped up on my screen and said, hey, yeah, you didn't pay for your use of your overdrive this month, you don't get to use it, I would flip out. But like, it's going to be normalized over the next few years that, I didn't pay for that. It's like, that's not cool. No, if I pay for that feature when I bought the car, I get the feature.
The future. On that note, Fred, dude, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you hanging out with me, dude. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the rally out in Arkansas. We'll surprise you with what you bring, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it'll be a surprise to me too. So you gotta lay into Zach.
I'll find out what Zach's up to. I'll give him a call.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And if you want to talk anytime, let me know. If you're in Nebraska anytime, let me know.
I'm always in Nebraska, man. I'm always driving through there. But the problem is I go through the sand dunes. I don't go.
You go through the part that it doesn't suck. Yeah. I will say Omaha does have the best zoo in the world. That's actually a stat. You can Google that one. So if you ever do. Anybody or any of your listeners, if you're ever coming through Omaha, we have a zoo that's pretty damn good. Best zoo in the world. So, with that, thanks for having me, man. I'll talk to you. Man. I'll see you on the rally.
Take care, buddy.
All right, later.